Today we're talking about Goodfellas, the 1990 classic, directed by Martin Scorsese, written by Nicholas Pileggi, and I don't know how to pronounce that, I'm riffing.
You're Italian.
It's
Pileggi.
Yeah, but who knows after Ellis Island? I was supposed to be Fucile, and now I'm Fusil.
Yeah, no more.
So, it was written by the Nicholas Pileggi, who wrote the book, based on interviews with the real guy, Henry Hill. Very cool. And Scorsese kind of helped with the adaptation.
Scorsese.
So props there for having the original guy involved.
Very cool.
In the adaptation.
I love that.
This movie's 2 hours and 25 minutes. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I was never going to talk about it here because I think it's really hard to talk about art you consider perfect.
Yeah.
I think there are works of art, and this is the most subjective thing there is. There are works of art that if you consider it perfect, it's almost hard to break down why. And for me, I kind of don't want to. Because I really spend my life either consuming art or making it. But there is sort of a church and state division there where I don't want to see behind the curtain and undo the magic and see the strings of everything I love. Sometimes it's hard to get out of that analytical mindset to enjoy things anyway.
Right, yeah.
But there's some stuff that is just perfect to me.
Yeah.
And the reason we're talking about this movie at all is because Ray Liotta died. And
last week.
Yeah, at 67.
Which is like so freaky because that's not old.
No, it's not. And it really, it fucked up my whole week. And my last point, once we get into talking about this movie, is just about him. Because he's the reason this movie is so good.
Yeah, he's so good.
And maybe that's a good place to start. When I call this one of the perfect movies, and I think you kind of agree.
It's a really good movie.
Yeah. Maybe not as superlative as I'm going, but
right.
The thing that works so well is that everyone is on the exact same page and doing their best work. We could talk about the acting, the directing, the editing, the music cues, which have become
the music
what would
cues
have been
are
called
so
memes
good.
30 years ago.
I know. The writing is so good.
The story structure. It's all so good that you can zoom out and look at this now that it's been a couple decades, right? You can kind of see its place in movie history.
Yeah.
I think it's the best gangster movie.
It absolutely is.
I think it's one of the best dramas, and it's probably the best comedy.
It is very funny.
I saw something on Twitter the other day that it was right after Ray Liotta died, and it was saying Goodfellas is 2.5 hours of the funniest stuff ever written.
It is very, very funny. And because it's so serious and dramatic, and like it's not like it's making fun of itself, but like it's so absurd and it recognizes that. And like I think I like about this movie so much compared to maybe some other gangster movies, well, there are a lot of things, but one is that because I don't like a lot of gangster movies because it's just guys being dudes, and it's just, and I just can't. I'm like, okay, these guys are all fucking disgusting. But like this recognizes how absurd mobster culture is, and like makes fun of it while also still taking it very seriously. Like it balances like, yeah, these guys murder people and that's scary and bad, with the like, these guys are insane. Like the Joe Pesci, like, what do you mean I'm funny? Like, I love that scene because it's so ridiculous, and it knows it's ridiculous. And Joe Pesci knows that that's a ridiculous thing to get upset about. And
he's playing on the fact that he is unhinged.
Yes. And like, even the character knows that he's being like, he's joking, but also he's serious. Like, it's just, and it really plays that line really well.
There's a self-awareness without being exhaustingly meta. And stopping to explain the joke.
Like it's not, and it's not a satire. Like it's not making fun of mob movies because it's serious. It's a real story,
movie. Right? Like Karen talking about everyone at the wedding being named Peter or Paul. That's one of those moments that like lets the air out of the tires and kind of reflects on what's happening.
I think that's another thing that makes this movie such a good gangster movie is Karen, and it's Karen having a voiceover, because so many. I guess I'll zoom out a bit. I have a hard time with gangster movies because they feel so inaccessible and like inside baseball.
I show Maggie trailers and she goes, nope, it's all greasy men.
It's just greasy men. So like, I've tried watching The Sopranos. I cannot get through 5 minutes of The Sopranos because I don't know what's going on, because everybody looks the same. Everybody's named Peter or Paul, and everybody's using jargon that I don't understand. Whereas what's nice about this movie is that it's not holding your hand by any means, but you see Henry as he's growing up and entering into the gangster world. You see Karen being pulled in from the outside because she's not from that. And so you get like the Harry going through Diagon Alley for the first time, seeing the Wizarding World for the first time. It's that same concept. And so you are sort of brought into it and carried through.
Right.
And also, so it's like that accessibility element is there, which I really appreciate as somebody who's like didn't grow up watching gangster movies and doesn't know like Italian American slang and that sort of thing.
Right.
But then like Karen being this like outsider, like recognizing how horribly she's being treated and how like gross that culture is, but also liking it. Like when he goes to beat up the guy, she's like, I had to admit, it kind of turned me on, which is so funny and like terrible. But so it's just, again, it's towing that line of like,
it's charming.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's why it's so funny, because it's like, this is absurd and terrible. These people are bad people, but like you're really enjoying being along for the ride.
And it's so refreshing because every single scene in this movie, again, 2.5 hours long. Every single scene is memorable, enjoyable, and quotable. And it's not quotable in the way that Marvel movies are. We keep going to this example, but as long as they keep making billions of dollars, they're going to be this, juggernaut that everyone's going to point to.
Yeah. And I'm still going to angrily scream about how much I hate them.
The problem is that the first time it went with every character has to be funny, but they all have exactly the same sense of humor, and they can't actually make an offensive joke.
Right.
Then it becomes this safe, boring, pun-filled, quippy horseshit.
Right.
And none of that is funny.
Or like believable.
It's just
they're making
agonizing.
Jokes. Yeah.
But no, even worse. They're trying to make jokes.
And they're bad. Yeah.
Them talking about what you call the foot of a deer. And De Niro going, oh,
yeah.
It's punchlines.
Yeah, the paw.
Right, and it relies on the technical skill of the actors and the writers. So you have punchlines that are well written and punchlines that are well delivered. So the movie is genuinely funny, but there is that momentum and effortlessness that makes it all so intoxicating and endearing. It's a long movie. It covers an insane amount of time.
I mean, this guy's whole lifetime.
I tried to pay attention to that this time. It's multiple eras of this sort of gangster family. You see decades of just Henry's life.
Yeah.
But it all moves so incredibly fast. And when you write a story like that, it can be dizzying, right? You can kind of lose track of where it goes. But this film avoids all of those problems so neatly because the prominent players emerge very quickly, very early on in the narrative.
Yes.
So you always feel anchored. You go, oh, there's De Niro, and they're making him look younger.
Right.
His hair is different, but I know it's him. And then later you see him with gray hair and the glasses, and you can very easily clock the evolution of, the actor who they got to play young Ray Liotta in the beginning of the movie, who was sort of mentored by De Niro. At the end, now old De Niro is trying to basically kill Henry. And you see the full arc of that right there. There's a wonderful efficiency to this movie where I've seen it 1 billion times now, and I still enjoy every second of it. There's no like moment of exposition that is just eating your vegetables to get to the fun of the movie.
Like it's all like exactly like you have all that like essential like explanation and like pulling you in and making it accessible, but it's still so entertaining that even when you're watching it again, like learning about these things, like it's still really enjoyable to watch. I like the anchoring thing.
Yeah.
I think that's also something that really makes this a really good gangster movie for me compared to others is the focus on Henry. Like Henry, because a lot of mob movies I feel like are very like ensemble cast, which I don't have a problem with.
Sure.
But when you're already like talking about stuff that's maybe not super familiar to me, and that's just a me problem. And like there's a lot of time being covered, a lot of things going on, like complex operations. When you're not anchored to a central character, it makes you feel really lost. That's why I don't like The Godfather. Like there's a lot of reasons I don't like The Godfather, but I don't feel connected to anybody in The Godfather.
I think the hook there that can keep you anchored through The Godfather is just the structure of the family. As various members die, you lose a father, you lose a brother, and then once Michael becomes like the last man standing, then you realize he was sort of your guy the whole time.
Here's a problem. I hate Al Pacino.
No, I know. So for people like you, not only are you starting with Henry, but he's there the whole time, And I agree. I think Ray Liotta has some qualities that Al Pacino doesn't.
He has a lot of qualities that Al Pacino doesn't, namely that he's a good actor.
No, but that I don't agree.
I realize that's a very specific personal opinion, but I'll stand by it and die for it. But then you think about something like The Departed, which has a really complex plot, which I don't mind. I like a complex plot, but there's a lot going on in that movie. There's like all these like, who do you trust? Who's working for who? Like all this stuff going on in The Departed. Whereas this is more just about like this one guy's life and all the complex things that happen around his life. But the central thing is him and Karen and his relationship with Joe Pesci and with Robert De Niro. And like, that's very fun. And I like that anchoring. I think that makes the movie just feel more, you just feel more connected, especially when it's hard to feel connected to like a bunch of greasy men.
And in The Departed, Karen is Matt Damon. So it's sort of easier to relate there.
Sure, yeah.
But that's an interesting comparison, given that they're both Scorsese movies.
Yeah.
And you sort of get a charm offensive in The Departed because it has such a stacked cast.
Yeah.
And maybe one of the great similarities between these movies is how, if you look at the smaller roles, because obviously DiCaprio's great, Matt Damon's great.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jack Nicholson's a great
villain.
villain.
Yeah, they're all great. Yeah, it's a good movie. I love it.
My favorite part of that movie might be Mark Wahlberg.
Because he's so ridiculous.
Because he's so over the top and so funny and memorable.
Yeah.
I feel like there are a lot of those like meaty, hysterical, memorable roles in this movie.
I was going to say, like, Joe Pesci kind of fills that role. Yeah, like, he's very over the top, and he's perfect for that character.
And I don't mean that they only have a little screen time, because if you added it up, they're both in it quite a lot. But there is such a laser focus on Henry that anytime anyone else is talking, it's like, oh, is this an ensemble?
Yeah.
You know?
Right, yeah. And I also think another thing that helps this movie for me, the characters are really distinguishable from each other.
No, that's true. But that,
like,
that does help.
Like there's Polly, who there's another guy who looks a lot like him, but like for most of the part I can get that it's him.
Yep.
Robert De Niro is very distinct. Joe Pesci's very distinct. Ray Liotta is very distinct. And so like and then Karen's the girl. And so it makes it really easy for me. Whereas like The Sopranos, I have no idea what's going on because everybody looks the same and everybody acts the same.
I think you're hitting on something great here, because the parallel tracks that Henry and Karen are on through this movie, the more times you see it, I think the more you catch sort of the echoes across storylines there. When you see, your eyes kind of glaze over at the wedding, seeing all the Peters and Pauls, and you realize that so many of these background guys who enforce and make up kind of the lower ranks of this family, they're all interchangeable.
Exactly.
But when you're following Karen's perspective, and she has those couple scenes with all of the other women married to these guys, those women, the camera's always panning through them. They've got all the curlers in their hair, and they become just as interchangeable.
Exactly.
So they have that same eyes glazing over, like they're both going through that. They're both overwhelmed.
And so when you feel like, I don't know who all these people are, you feel like it's okay, I don't need to know. Like even like the restaurant scenes, like pre-Karen, when Ray Liotta, my God, is taking you through the restaurant, introducing you to all the guys, like Jimmy 2 times and all that. Like it's the way that the directing is done, like that long panning shot just going through the restaurant. You're like, I don't need to know who these guys are. Right. Like, I'm being introduced to them, but it's like, I'm never going to see them again, and it doesn't matter.
But what an amazing thing to be able to communicate. This slow tracking shot where they're all greeting the camera.
Yeah.
And some part of you, it's just done at such a high level that you're not supposed to memorize these names.
No, doesn't matter.
There's so much being communicated, and you're understanding so much more about these characters as it's happening.
The point isn't like, you have to know who these people are. The point is there are all of these people, and Henry knows all of them.
Right. And they're all greeting him so warmly.
Yes.
And that becomes a little evolution from the earlier scene with De Niro, when you see him
handing the 20 to every guy that he walks in. Yeah,
or 100 to the guy for opening the door.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And all of these echoes and parallels and payoffs and evolutions, and there's so much of everything we love to talk about with art in this movie. So much of that plot is communicated through the voiceover. And I want to spend a second talking about that, because one of my absolute favorite elements of this movie is the narration. Yes. Breaking that down a little, there's the content, meaning the words of what he says.
Yeah.
All of that, I think, is efficient. but also loaded with personality.
Totally.
And character and critique. And there's a coyness. There's an edge when he's talking about his origins and his father beating him with the belt.
Yeah.
But there's always this kind of wry humor. You know when you can hear the smile?
Yes.
And kind of the change of the mouth?
Yeah.
It's world-class voice acting.
Yeah.
On top of world-class acting.
Yes.
And not everyone has both of those skills. But the thing that really hit me this time, we were watching it on a better TV than I think last time I saw it. And we weren't using a soundbar or anything. It was just the sound shooting out the back of the TV, bouncing off the walls.
Yeah.
It was how the narration sits in the mix of
cool.
the movie.
Okay.
Where it was reserved, very relaxed. I mean, he's speaking at a conversational level, telling the story, but it sounds so full and natural. It feels like he's quite close to the mic.
I was gonna say, it feels like he's like sitting right next to you on the couch.
Exactly, yeah. It never feels like he's talking into a mic. You never hear the feedback or the bump or the just artificiality of a microphone.
Yeah.
But it feels masterfully recorded.
Yeah.
So it can feel like he's sitting right next to you.
Yes, right. He's taking you along with him.
Right.
And so you feel really connected to him and like you're in good hands and you're not going to get lost.
And if you look at the sort of culture at the time, if this was made maybe a little before 1990, if you look at how radio sounded at that time, like listening to old clips of, just normal local radio or Howard Stern, there's so much put on top of their voices. There's so much processing going into that to make it sound all masculine and big and deep and rich and it to me it's agony. My ears despise that because it sounds like you're talking into this vacuum of nothing where all sound goes away. I like a little bit of a noise floor, which is when you can hear some ambient noise. It's not perfectly clean.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a touch of static or just something to make it feel alive. I like that. And there's nothing distracting. There's no real room tone in the mix of the narration here, but it's also not mixed like the dialogue in the movie.
Right. So there's a distinction. It doesn't feel like, is he off screen somewhere? Like it feels more in your head next to you.
Exactly. He feels like he's sitting on the couch next to you watching the movie.
Yes.
Where it sounds, and this is the hardest thing to accomplish as someone who's mixed a lot of audiobooks and a lot of podcasts, to make it sound utterly natural, where you don't, your brain doesn't second guess it at all.
No,
it tricks
you don't
your
think
brain
about it
cleanly.
Totally.
The dialogue has to be mixed almost at a movie level. So you know there's a boom mic somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's picking up everything going on in the room.
Yeah.
But he's mixed so perfectly where you really believe you're in the moment, you're in his head.
Yes, right.
And it sells that investment in the character. It gives you such extraordinary intimacy with the character. And I always love narration when it pops up in movies and shows. It's why I loved things like House of Cards, him talking to the camera, Fleabag, Deadpool. I think it's why a lot of those things work.
Sex in the City.
I enjoy all of that.
Which like overdoes it and it's fun. But yeah.
But this will always be the gold standard for narration.
It's very, very good.
At the end, there's just everything works so well the whole time that you're blown away for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And by the end of the movie, when this narration that you rely on so much, that has endeared you so much to this story, it dovetails into the narrative.
Right.
When he starts addressing the camera
in the testimony in the courtroom.
And you realize that he's been telling this story, that he became a rat and told this whole story in court. And that is such a beautiful wrap it all up in a bow and end it on a perfect note. It's such a satisfying conclusion.
It is very satisfying,
because stories like this, when you tell the whole life of someone, let's compare it to something like The Departed, which ends in an absolute Shakespearean blowout of almost everyone dying.
Yeah.
That is usually the end of these stories. There are plenty of dramas where it's all about one person. It's all about their life. That if it doesn't end with their death, you're kind of pissed. You kind of think like, well, where's the other 20 minutes of the movie?
Yeah.
I want to know the real ending.
Sure, yeah.
And this ends with him just kind of fritting away into witness protection. But you feel utterly satisfied. And I think that little coup de grace of the narration at the end, I think that's why it feels complete. Again, on that sort of subconscious trick your brain level.
Sure, yeah. Well, and talking of like with the narration and the sound, I think something else that's so like successful about this movie is the music. One thing I have a hard time with, like The Godfather specifically, and this could just be like, it's a product of its time. Old movies had less music. But I feel like the dramatic moments in The Godfather do not hit me. And so I'm recognizing that it's supposed to be a dramatic moment, but it doesn't feel like the horse head in the bed is so underwhelming for me. Like, I hate it. Like, there's just too much silence in like every killing. I don't know. I feel so distant and disconnected from it. Whereas here, like in Goodfellas, I feel anchored to the story through Henry. And then like all the music is so expertly incorporated into this movie. I think it's so, when it's supposed to be funny, it's really funny. When it's supposed to be intense and dramatic, it's really intense and dramatic. And sometimes even there's not music, and the absence of music makes things really intense. Like when Joe Pesci is going to, thinking he's about to go be made, and then he's killed. Like, it's silent.
Like when Stax is killed.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. And so that's really interesting.
Does the montage of all the killings during the christening
I was going to say, Godfather, that's the one that I like.
But that has that sort of church music and momentum to it.
It's because of because it's so like almost ironic and like scary.
Yeah.
I really like that moment. That's like the one moment in the movie that I really love.
And every time you cut to Michael during this moment that is supposed to be happy, and he looks so ice cold.
Yes.
It's doing so much character work.
Yeah, like that's a really great moment in the movie. I love that. But yeah, so I think the music in this one is just, it's so much fun.
And it gives it that sense of fun. That jauntiness when you have that the Sunshine of Your Love. Yeah, exactly. When that breaks in, and it's him realizing that De Niro's about to kill Maury from Maury's Wigs. So the last thing I want to talk about here is just singling out Ray Liotta, because there are so many other gangster movies. There are so many other Italian pieces of media.
Yes.
And I love a lot of them. I love a lot of them more than you do.
You do.
But this one is special, and I think he's always going to be the one outstanding reason for that.
Yeah.
He's got one of the most fascinating, expressive faces in the world.
He really does.
And through this 2.5 hours, he expertly runs through the entire spectrum of human emotions. For example, grief, revenge, pride, guilt, desperation, love, and charm. And they all look like oil paintings on his face.
I know.
His performance is all-consuming, such that he can effortlessly outshine career best performances from everyone else in the movie, including the directing, the writing, the editing, everyone working at full throttle, and he's still just
he stands
absolutely on top for the entire time. And I think the performance is so good, it's so invested and absolute, that it definitely laid the groundwork for conflicted gangster portrait Tony Soprano a couple years later. It definitely laid the groundwork for Walter White in Breaking Bad, for Tommy Shelby in Peaky Blinders.
Yes.
All of these roles were the lead actor. It's technically an ensemble, but this one guy happens to be in every scene. All of those. I mean, you could stretch it out if you want to go beyond the mobster thing to Mad Men. I think Don Draper.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
Again, like this like flawed...
The anti-hero era. I think a lot of people talk about it beginning with Tony Soprano. They always give James Gandolfini that credit. And that performance is stunning as well.
Yeah, he's great.
But I don't think you get there without this.
No, this is totally... Exactly. And again, I think that's like that anchoring to Henry where you care so much about him and you're invested in his success and his well-being while he's doing these horrible things.
And he can do anything. Anything that is demanded. Any emotion, any feeling... Any split-second emotion that isn't even verbalized, you know he can handle.
Yeah, right.
It's just, it's intoxicating every single time.
I love watching him on screen. He's such an interesting face, and he's so just gripping and like sympathetic while also you hate him. And it's really impressive the way he's able to make you cling on to him as a character. He does such a good job here, and it was really sad.
Just one of my favorites. Yeah.
I'm sad. I'm very sad.
Ruined my week.
Yeah,
that's all I have for this one.
Yeah, this is a great movie. If for some reason you haven't seen it, I mean, we kind of spoiled the whole thing. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter at all.
It doesn't spoil it. Like, the movie's still amazing. Go watch it. What are you doing?
It's also a real story, so shut up.
If you were like me and you don't really care about movies about greasy men, watch this one because you'll enjoy it. I'm just saying. I don't have much else to say.
Nope.
The other good thing about this movie?
Yeah.
Al Pacino's not in it. So there you go. It's also
Let's leave Al
It's also
alone.
not boring. Do you know what the worst
Not for
part?
a moment.
The worst part about The Irishman was it was just so. I was so bored. I
Also,
didn't care.
this one already showed you how well De Niro performs when you just change his hair color.
Right.
And he's an actor. He's an incredibly gifted actor.
Yes.
So he can fill in the rest.
Right, exactly. Also, this movie is long. This movie's like 2.5 hours long, but it doesn't feel like, oh my God, this movie's so long.
The CG, I think, breaks the immersion of The Irishman as much as the narration makes the immersion of this movie.
Totally, yeah.
It's difficult.
This is a great film, and I love it. Did we play Sunshine of Your Love at our wedding? Did I make that up?
Yeah, I found an orchestral cover.
Beautiful.
It's a lot of fun.
I'm so proud of us. Okay,
right,
well,
so,
thanks everybody for being here.
Yeah, thanks, and go watch the movie. We made pasta, I made garlic bread, and we watched Goodfellas the day Ray Liotta died, and that felt like the, I don't know, only sensible thing to do.
Yeah, what else was there to do? Mm-hmm. It was the right thing. Yeah, if you have any other great Ray Liotta movie recommendations, send them in, secondbreakfastpod@gmail.com, TikTok, and Instagram. Let us know what we should watch to honor Ray Liotta, because he was an incredible actor, and it's really shitty that he's dead. So
also go watch Marriage Story. He's fantastic in that, and that's a side role.
I forgot he was in that.
Oh yeah,
Marriage Story is a great movie.
Yeah, you've got Adam Driver, Scarlett Johansson,
right. I completely
Laura
forgot
Dern,
he's in that movie,
and Ray Liotta. Yeah,
I mean that movie's
killer.
Bummer.
That one's on Netflix.
It's really good.
Goodfellas is on HBO right now.
Yeah.
HBO Max.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Give her a watch.
We will talk to you on Friday, and go make some pasta. And there's literally no way to put too much garlic in there. So
exactly.
Just keep slicing.
Slice it with a razor blade like you're in prison.
All right. See you Friday.
Bye.